Does it make sense to pay a marketing company to do Google LSA?
And I always say this to people because people, I'm in these groups, I see all these lawyers asking these questions, and it's like, how much should a website cost? And how much should SEO cost? It's all over the map. So, like, here's a question for you. You can go figure out how to go set up LSAs on your own. Now, what's the value of your time to go do that? I don't know. You can go run your own Google Ads accounts. You got to go learn how to do it. I don't know what the time, if it's worth it for you to go learn that versus hiring somebody, what the value is for you. And so I'm always reluctant to say like yes or no to those types of questions because I don't know anything about you. I don't know what the value of your time is. I will say this, like LSAs happens to be one of these things. If you sit down for a weekend, you got to get your documents together. I think you probably can handle it yourself a lot of times. But I say that, and then I got lawyers that email me being like, I can't figure out how to get into my Gmail. And so I'm like, I think that's another thing that people like me do too much. We paint these broad brushes about people, like values in the eye of the beholder. Maybe it is worth it for you to pay for LSAs. I don't know.
I think my nuance is kind of depends on your budget. So if you only have $2,000, well, it's probably better to just put that $2,000, give it to Google. And that's the whole point of Google LSA. And I called it, Gyí, I could confidently say this, I was literally one of the, if not the first person to call out Google LSA for lawyers. Because I saw it for some kind of like plumbers or some kind of professional service. It was like a year and a half before Google LSA for lawyers came out. So I went on a search to see if there's such a thing for lawyers. There wasn't. There was only one company at the time, one SEO company, forgot the name. Got in contact with them. I'm like, hey, is this available for lawyers? They're like, it's not. I'm like, can you let me know as soon as there is something available? So they let me know early. They were a Google partner. So Google let them into the beta program. They released it to me. I went and made a Facebook Live. It's like, guys, there's this new thing coming out. And you have no idea how crazy this is because that's where Google's heading. And why do I see that's where Google's heading is because Google is trying to bypass marketing companies. Instead of depending on marketing company to come and put up the ads for you, well, Google just wants to eat up the entire piece of the pie and say, just give it to us. We'll take care of it for you. You don't need a landing page. You don't need tracking. All you need is just give us your phone number and tell it where you want the calls to be made. And that's it. I'm like, this is the future. And I believe like 25 lawyers signed up. Those lawyers, I think like 20 of them were super uber successful, made a couple of $1 million off those. And then there was a couple others that trickled in. But I've still been hearing amazing good things. It really depends on the practice type. I've been talking to a bunch of different media buyers who do a lot of Google LSA. I get a lot of data from them because I'm in a very interesting point where I don't do marketing for any lawyers. So, I don't have anything to promote myself. But one is I'm a potential client myself. And two, I'm a great referral source for a lot of these media buyers. So in exchange of that, I will say, you got to give me data. Tell me what practice type is working. What's the cost per lead? If you have data about cost acquisition, give that to me too. Based on that, I see what makes sense. If it makes sense, I pass it off to our members. Hey, if you're estate planning, you do immigration, you do criminal, you need to Google LSA because the person who's doing it says basically he has a 100% success rate. So go do it. So yeah. But again, coming back to the nuance, it depends on the budget. And as you said, you made a great point, Gyí. It depends on you as the person. If it's beyond you, by all means, it's better to do it, pay a little bit more than not do it. And then the other thing is opportunity cost, kind of like your time. So a lot of these, if you just calculate the opportunity cost, if I get a company who can come and manage it, get it off my hands and maybe go request those refunds for those spam calls or whatever, how much would that be worth? Does that make sense for the management fee? And if so, calculate that way, then great, let's do it. If not, no worries, just try to do it yourself.
That's the whole thing. You got to just look at all this stuff through business metrics, right? It's got to be analyzed through value of clients, target cost per acquisition cost. There's two other points that you alluded to there that I think are so important for people. One is like in LSAs, and this is true for local pack too. If you don't have you don't have a competitive number of reviews in your area, like forget about it. And so the more broad point is you have to understand what your firm looks like in the context of the competitive environment to the consumer. So, people like me will come around and be like, oh, you need local SEO. And it's like, okay, that's great. But if you have no reviews, and the other one that you mentioned too, that's so important is you don't have your intake locked down. Forget about local SEO, forget about LSAs, forget about advertising. You're going to spend time and money driving visibility for your practice that no one's going to call you because all of the competitors you're showing up against have more reviews. They're open 24/7, you're closed. And so anyway, I think that's the thing I always remind people is to look at your business through the eyes of your consumers, because that should dictate, that and your financials should be dictating your strategy. Not like, people like Gyí come around and say, hey, you should be doing local SEO. And so everybody do local SEO. And it's like, well, Guy's telling you to do local SEO because he sells local SEO.